So, when Russia kicked off its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the world was bracing for something completely new. We weren't just expecting tanks and missiles. No, the expectation was for a full-on digital blitzkrieg, an overwhelming cyber attack that could bring a whole country to its knees before the first shot was even fired.
All the experts, all the governments, they were talking about a cyber Pearl Harbor. The fear was that Russia was about to unleash this devastating wave of attacks, shutting down power grids, collapsing phone networks, and just grinding the entire country to a digital halt. This was supposed to be the big debut of 21st century warfare. But here's the thing. That single, massive, world-ending knockout blow, it just never came. The real story of the cyber war in Ukraine is so much more complicated and, honestly, way more interesting than anyone could have predicted. Okay, so let's get into it.
All right, let's start with the war everyone thought was coming, the one that, in a lot of ways, never really happened. This was the Phantom Cyber War, the digital apocalypse that turned out to be a ghost in the machine.
Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like there wasn't a cyber component. There absolutely was, a huge one. But as the cybersecurity firm Trustwave pointed out, it just didn't play that decisive war-ending role that everyone was anticipating. Russia's hackers were busy, for sure, but they never managed to land a strategic, game-changing blow in cyberspace.
So, if it wasn't one big haymaker, what was it actually like? Well, the reality was something else entirely. It wasn't a single event. It was a relentless, grinding campaign. Think of it more like a war of 1,000 cuts, all designed to disrupt, demoralize, and destabilize.
And the sheer volume here is just staggering. According to Ukraine's own security service, the SBU, they've dealt with over 4,500 major cyber attacks since the invasion began. Just do the math on that. That's an average of more than 10 attacks every single day.
And these attacks weren't just aimed at the military. No, they were way more strategic. Russia was going after everything: government websites, power companies, telecom providers, railways, media outlets. The goal wasn't just one clean knockout. It was to inject chaos into every single part of Ukrainian life.
So what was their go-to weapon for all this chaos? Mostly, it was the good old DDoS attack. The Cyber Peace Institute found this was the most common tool by far. Basically, it's a digital sledgehammer. You just flood a website or a service with so much junk traffic that it completely buckles under the pressure and crashes, knocking it offline for anyone who actually needs it.
And here's what's really key. These attacks weren't just about technology. They were psychological. Russia made a point to combine these cyber attacks with psychological operations, or PSYOPs. So the goal wasn't just to take a website down, it was to create panic, to spread disinformation, and to chip away at the public's trust.
Okay, so this brings up a really big question, right? With this constant, never-ending barrage of thousands of attacks, why didn't Ukraine's entire digital world just collapse? Well, the answer is one of the most amazing stories of cyber resilience we have ever seen. This quote just captures how wild their plan was. Before the invasion even started, they physically moved the government's most critical data. We're talking 10 million gigabytes of tax records, property deeds, all of it, onto these things called Amazon Snowball devices. Think of them as super secure, suitcase-sized hard drives. They literally shipped them out of the country and uploaded everything to the cloud. Pretty brilliant, right? You can't hack a server that isn't there anymore.
And honestly, that was just one piece of the puzzle. What we really saw was this totally unprecedented team-up. You had Ukrainian government agencies working side by side with tech giants like Microsoft and Amazon. You had international partners like USAID chipping in $60 million and NATO's Cyber Defense Center jumping in to help. The whole community, public and private, came together to form this unified digital shield.
But here's the real kicker. The tech was important, the partnerships were crucial, but the human element? That was the absolute game changer. Report after report concluded that Ukraine's own cyber specialists were just better. They were more skilled, more agile, and flat out more effective at finding and stopping threats than their Russian counterparts.
Which brings us to our next big point, because the impact of this conflict goes way beyond Ukraine's borders. What happened here is forcing the entire world to completely rethink what modern war even looks like.
This slide just says it all. For decades, if you wanted to project military power, you needed massive, expensive stuff like a $200 million fighter jet. Now, a simple drone you can buy commercially can threaten that exact same asset. This kind of imbalance just completely flips traditional military strategy on its head.
There's this quote from an Air Force officer that just nails it. He says we're witnessing the democratization of precision-guided munitions. In the past, only a superpower could afford a weapon that hits its target perfectly. Now, technology has put that kind of power into the hands of almost any individual on the battlefield. That's a fundamental shift.
And we're seeing the exact same thing happen in cyberspace. This idea of crowd hacktivism is exploding. The lines are getting super blurry between government hackers, your typical cybercriminals, and these politically motivated groups like Killnet. It's a messy, chaotic new landscape where basically anyone with a keyboard can become a digital soldier.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important takeaway. The war in Ukraine isn't just another conflict. It's a live fire laboratory for the future of warfare.
Palmer Luckey, the founder of the defense tech company Anduril, was pretty blunt about it. He basically said that while companies like his are losing money selling tech to Ukraine, they're gaining priceless real-world combat experience. They're testing the weapons and systems of tomorrow in the battles of today.
And that's really the bottom line here. The tactics being tested, the technologies being refined, the cyber strategies being deployed right now in Ukraine, they are providing the data and the lessons that are going to define the conflicts of the next generation. So we're left with this one last thought. That huge shock and awe cyber war, it never happened. Instead, we saw something much more complex. A story of relentless digital attacks met with incredible resilience, forever changing how wars are fought. The blueprint for 21st century warfare is now out there for everyone to see. The question is, are we ready for what comes next?